The Blokebusters podcast is proud to be a member of the Podbros Network. You can find us, as well as other fantastic podcasts such as Pencil and Ink Review, Another Damn Trivia Show, and The Language of Bromance at podbros.com, as well as on most other fine podcasting services. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to share and enjoy the Blokebusters podcast.
Welcome to episode 70 of the Blokebusters podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Paul.
And today we will be discussing X-Men Apocalypse, I believe the 9th film, is that correct?
Let's just run through real quick. So you've got the original trilogy, then you've got Wolverine Origins, then you've got X-Men First Class, and
Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past. Then you've also got...
There was Wolverine and then the Origins Wolverine. Right?
And then there was the Wolverine one where he's in Japan.
Yeah, that was just Wolverine.
And then...
So I believe this is 9th.
I'm counting 8. So unless that,
okay,
whatever.
Yeah, either way, okay.
Does anyone actually care? No.
And I'll get this right out of the way. I had a wedding last night. I am very hoarse, as you can probably tell. And some of our listeners that think I might be too loud, don't identify yourselves. It's fine. But you might be appreciative of that for this one time only.
Yeah.
Paul and I are kind of matching volume at this point in time.
I know, it's a little strange.
It is odd.
There's not going to be as much leveling needed at the end of this one.
Where could people get a hold of us, Paul?
Well, they
can so choose to.
Yeah, they can get a hold of us at... Let's see, what was it again? Oh, yes, at Blokebusters on Twitter. Or Blokebusters on Facebook. Or you can email us, blokebusterpodcast@gmail.com. Or we're on Instagram. Hooray, that's Blokebusters. And we have a website, blokebusters.webs.com. It's a nice little area there. I'm trying to make sure it's fully updated. It's got that extra tab now for the film spotlight thing we put out. And just come talk to us about anything whatsoever. We genuinely do just interact.
We usually try to keep it movie related, but even so, in the entertainment world.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Yes, we are cheaper than a therapist, but we might not be as helpful.
Certainly not. How's the film doing?
Well, let's see. Directed by Bryan Singer,
yes. Mm-hmm.
And most people would say probably the best person to direct the X-Men films.
Yeah. And
a budget of $178 million, which is very strange, and a box office so far worldwide of $291,607,152 US dollars. So, not doing too bad since it's only been out for 8 days.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it's doing a little better over the rest of the world than maybe...
Yeah, I believe, I don't have it in front of me at this point, but I believe it's only about 32% of that was in America, and the rest is...
Yeah, I think it did 65 its opening weekends. Well, what did you think of this film, Paul?
Well, first I need to know what it's about.
What is it about?
Yeah, what happens in this thing?
There's some X-Men and there's an apocalypse.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably better than what you have written down right there.
With the emergence of the world's first mutant, Apocalypse, the X-Men must unite to defeat his extinction-level plan.
Okay.
Alrighty.
I think I prefer your original one, yes.
Yep. There's some X-Men and there's an Apocalypse. Yep.
Alright, so... Well, let's see. What did I think of it? You know what? I think I'm going to let my wife have the first say.
Okay.
And I was telling you before...
Do you echo these thoughts, or you'll point them out when you do?
I'm just going to read what it said. So, yes, as I told you before, we were leaving the cinema, and I turned to her and said, "Oh, so what did you think?" Because she's normally kind of bored with me explaining exactly what I think. What followed was about 20 minutes of her talking about her thoughts, and every time she would seem like she would reach the end, she'd remember, "Oh yes, there was this other thing." So I have tried to distill them down, and these are pretty much verbatim. I have cut a few things. There we go. Angel is a turd with wings, and how the hell can you fly with wings made of swords? The next thing the next thing that came up was, I hate the one in the onesie. And I think she meant Psylocke by that one.
Okay. Yeah.
It didn't really have a plot, and I hated the bad guy.
Okay.
I think Scott's a douche, a whiny ass bitch who looked like he's straining to take a poop, and then acts really tired afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And the final thing was
maybe that was what he called it.
Yeah. And the final thing was Storm was really annoying too. So,
okay, so loved it.
yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah, one of her favorite films.
Yes,
I think.
absolutely.
So
would you echo that, or
I wouldn't necessarily echo that. I definitely had a few things that I didn't think were brilliant.
Yeah.
But overall, I'd say this is probably in like the middle of the franchise. I think. I would say that Days of Future Past is better.
I'd say it's far better. Yeah.
And maybe this is on a level with First Class. I would say.
I don't know. For me, it was a lot of hits and a lot of misses as well.
Yeah, that's the big problem with this film, is that there are parts where it just kind of trailed for.
Yeah, we'll get into all the issues, I think, but there were good bits. Don't get me wrong.
I'm sure everyone knows what is probably the best bit in the film, which is borrowing from the best bit from Days of Future Past as well. So
yeah. Yes, and just a real quick reminder: this is a spoiler cast, everyone. So if you have not seen the film, pause this, go see it, and then continue on. But yes, we will discuss key plot elements, ending, whatever. So you're alluding to the Quicksilver sequence again, which is pretty
longer.
Much long. I loved it, but it went on for too long. I was ready for it to be over before it was over.
Yeah, and I was sitting in the cinema, and then you see them driving up in the car, and then everything just slows to a crawl, and so you see the bee going slowly, you see the car just barely moving, and then you hear "Sweet Dreams Are Made of These," and then the camera pans onto him, and then everyone in the cinema went, "Yay!" It was like, you needed to see him on screen. It wasn't obvious.
You weren't sure what was happening. Yeah, I don't know what you're. I don't think anyone cheered at that moment in our theater, but I don't know. I'd love a Quicksilver standalone, but I don't know that he'd ever get one.
The issue with that is he pretty much like the Flash, but he doesn't have the Flash's backstory.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I mean, maybe as a TV show.
Yeah, there you go.
But I don't think they would end up giving him a solo film, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're probably correct.
I definitely enjoyed it. They didn't have enough unique things that he did. I mean, he had many different things that he did during that sequence, and I enjoyed seeing it, if only because you got to hear a fair amount of "Sweet Dreams Are Made of These," and I actually quite like that song. But yeah, towards the end, it was, is this going to be the last one? Nope. Okay. Is this one?
Yeah,
nope.
It definitely went on for, I would say, at least like 30 to 45 seconds too long.
I mean, I sort of understand it because he is emptying the mansion.
Yes.
So,
and I did like that they showed the world is still, he can only slow things down. Like, there were still explosions slowly developing, as he's flying around the mansion.
Yeah. And there was some point where he was sort of cutting it a bit close as well. But
so of course, I like that bit, but too long. Apocalypse, or En Sabanur, as played by Oscar Isaac. So I can already tell I did not enjoy this film as much as you. I thought he looked absolutely absurd and ridiculous.
Yes.
Anytime he was on screen, I'm not scared of you. You look stupid. I don't know. I can't put it in words why I hated the design so much.
I think the big problem with Apocalypse, at least this version of Apocalypse, is massive. Like, if you actually see any of the other incarnations, generally Apocalypse can change his size kind of like he
Which,
did in
spoiler, we see it,
in the mind, which I think is their way of saying, look, we are here, we've done it. But yeah, he is a relatively short guy in this. He's not exactly a big looming figure, which might be, but I mean, obviously he's powerful and he's able to keep the abilities from his previous hosts and all that, but you don't feel like he's the big bad guy.
I just thought the whole character design, I thought the color palette for him and just the whole design of his costuming, I don't know. I did not like it. Just kind of took me out of the movie every time I saw him.
I will say the color palette, you had to blame the original artist for that one.
Okay. Well, you can change things. It works.
You can.
Well, I'll come back to shitting on it later, but I think I want to mix up some good things in here too.
All right.
There were some really excellent action sequences in this.
There were.
I would say, of course, like I said, spoilers open. So the Weapon X, and it is not Wolverine; it is Weapon X in this film.
Well, that's because that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's who he's referred to as before he ever became. Is that correct? Because at least that's according to my friend Dustin. So
yeah, pretty much.
Because was his Xbox name.
Yeah, he takes on Wolverine later.
Yeah, but his escape. Quite a high body count. You don't want to be a henchman in this film, apparently.
No, you don't.
Most films you don't want to be a henchman, but certainly not this one.
Yes.
A lot of families left orphaned or at least dadless.
Yes, but to borrow from Austin Powers, which this is an incredible tangent, but apparently the UK and other versions of Austin Powers is longer than the US version, because in the UK version and Europe version, I guess, whatever, whenever a henchman is dispatched, you then are treated to a cut to their families. So the first one that gets steamrolls over, it cuts to his wife receiving a phone call. Like the kid going,
I saw that in like bonus features or something, maybe on like one of the original discs.
Mommy, is Dad gonna get home soon to go? It's like, yes, he'll be there. And then there's a phone like, what? Oh no! and then the next one who gets his head eaten off by a giant mutated sea bass. It cuts to Rob Lowe before he was number 2 or whatever he was in the second one. And he's there at a bachelor party for a guy who's like saying, can you believe that John Smith is getting married tomorrow? And then he gets a phone call, it's like, what? Decapitated by a giant mutated sea bass? Oh, okay.
That's what happens.
And so he ends up just going like, to Smitty, and they all like cheer. And so, yeah.
Thank you for taking us down that road.
To be perfectly honest, I've forgotten what I was actually going to say. But it was something to do with the
henchmen.
It was like all of these people.
Yeah, and
just no more
keep in
families.
mind, like, these are essentially children that are in this facility that are just nonchalantly walking past dead body after dead body slashed up, and they're like, they're pretty cool with it. I think they'd be freaking the hell out. But
I mean, I can understand why Jean Grey wouldn't, probably because she's used to the worst in humanity at this point. Scott should be losing his mind.
Yeah, he seems like he'd be freaking out about that. Now that you bring the two of those up, I did really like the performances by Sophie Turner and Ty Sheridan in this. I would say I enjoyed them more than McAvoy this time around. I mean, Fassbender's still Fassbender, but
and he as well. He had a fantastic side where you got to see him just trying to have a family like that. Brilliant. You never really see that, at least in the film version.
I like that, but once again, I thought those sequences lasted a little too long. I just wanted to get on with the movie.
I can understand that, and also I did notice the bit when, and again, spoilers for those of you that really aren't listening.
I think we're good now.
His daughter ends up getting an arrow through her.
And
then never stated and never really shown, but heavily implied that his wife has the other end of the arrow in her.
Yeah, that was very unclear.
And never touched on screen. Like, you didn't see in any real way. And also, he doesn't seem to notice that his wife is no longer moving or saying anything.
No, in that scene, he's just cradling his daughter. And then we're just told later that the wife died as well. And like, how? How did she die? Yeah, that's the only thing.
And that's one powerful bow.
And one weak wife that just the tip or whatever killed her.
Just the tip.
Just a bit. Pardon me. I thought that was very kind of lazy, sloppy storytelling there.
I mean, I just thought that, maybe him seeing that his daughter just kills and then he's on the edge of losing it, and then seeing that his wife also was dead, and then that could be the thing that would actually tip him over and cause him to go. But no, they didn't bother with that. It was just like, daughter's dead, you're dead.
It just seemed like, okay, well, we can't have the wife around, she died too. Okay, it was a big arrow. It was the Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, giant 8-foot arrow that he shot.
Yes,
that sequence. If anyone gets that reference, okay.
Did you
what?
Did you mean Men in Tights? Or
no, Prince of Thieves. That one trailer moment where it's the following the arrow that. The arrow was like enormous in the film. Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking of the plot device arrow rather than the main. Yeah. Okay.
Robin gets another shot. Okay.
Well, that ties into one of my notes actually. Speaking of slightly meta moments, what did you think of the fact that they took a dig at themselves and definitely X-Men Last Stand?
Which
they're coming out of the cinema having watched something. I don't know if they state what it is, and then they're having that discussion. I think they're coming out of the cinema talking about the Star Wars, because obviously that was when it came out. And then they're saying like, this one was better because of this, and the other one saying no, this one's better than this. And then you had Jean Grey saying, well, I think we can all agree that the third one is always the worst. It's like, okay, I see what you're getting at here.
I appreciated what they're going for. It didn't work for me.
Right.
And then this. Thank you for this, because it leads beautifully into my major issue with this movie, is that it is so heavily reliant on giving winks and nods to the previous films.
Right.
That is so much of the dialogue and so many of the jokes, and if you're not caught up on these films, you're going to be confused. Easily. I mean, I suppose you could say the same criticism a little bit for Civil War, but not to this extent, I don't think.
No.
I mean, so many of the little developments in here were just, okay, so that's when that, I see.
Yeah.
And there's no weight to it because you already know how the story ends then. From there, let's see Storm's hair turn white. Let's see Professor lose his hair.
Yeah.
Let's, just over and over and over, Jean Grey and Scott, there's a little connection there, I think, in the chopper or something, where she touches his hand or something. Oh, maybe something's going to go happen between them someday. And then, she calms Wolverine, Weapon X, down, and it was just, like I said, so heavily reliant just on knowing those things and just kind of winking to themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it bugged me every time it happened. And it happened a lot.
I can understand that. I mean, that's always going to be the issue when you have something that goes back.
It's a sequel, but it's it's in the past.
Yeah. So the film exists specifically to do two things. Number one, establish that the canon is changing, and number two, give you the backstory that we haven't had yet. So, unfortunately, what that means is we're going to be seeing things that we know must happen. So you're kind of just like, are we there yet? Okay, now he's got those glasses. Okay, that makes more sense. Well, what about the... Okay, there we go. Now they've covered that one. So you're just waiting for all the moments to hit. And maybe if they'd done this after... You know what? I think if they'd done this immediately after X-Men 2.
Okay.
So if they'd done the first two, and then they were like, okay, now we've gone back in time to show you. Obviously, they didn't have the idea of what they were doing back then.
Yeah.
But if they'd managed to do this one then,
yeah.
you wouldn't have had so many moments that were clear nods and winks. And then when you went back forward in time, you would then get the moments that those are nods and winks too. So you would have a nice mix, whereas this is almost entirely all, as you say, nods to previous films rather than setting up future ones. So
and I understand it is a difficult spot for the screenwriter to be in, but it just felt like, I've used this word already, it felt lazy to me. Like, that I think another way could have been found to make these characters interesting and let us know, like, if you're going to assume we've seen the films, then just assume we've seen the films. Like, we don't need to see every single moment that turns that character into what they become, we get it. But yeah, it was a bit over the top for me.
And I would also like to ask you a question. So, I'm going to list all of the main mutants that are listed. I'm pulling these off of Wikipedia. So these are all of the main people that have real story time. They got Professor X, Magneto, Mystique, Apocalypse, Beast, Cyclops, Jean Grey when she's developing her powers, Storm, Psylocke, Havoc, Quicksilver, Nightcrawler, Angel, and Jubilee. Number one, Jubilee never really does anything in this film.
See, already the issue is I don't remember half of those people. That's a bit of an overestimate. But yeah, there are a few in there. I'm like, oh, who were they again? Yeah,
that I think is the problem with this film, is that you have all of these, and we know what they can do, but only about 3/4 of them really use their powers for anything in this film. And then you've just got, oh look, they're here, there they are, and then that's about it.
So this is partially connected to, I think you're leading beautifully into my points here. Thank you. But that was my other major contention, was that it tried to juggle way too many storylines. And just so many characters. And yes, you'll say, what about the Marvel films? The Captain America stuff. Yes, a ton of characters, but the plot isn't dependent on developing every single little storyline there.
Well, no.
It's the film is about Captain America and Tony Stark, essentially, and it stems from there.
Well, that was because, so you got Civil War, to go into that now, and if maybe we'll talk about this for 10 minutes, I don't know. But so you got Civil War, where the plot is just about Captain America and Iron Man working through this thing, and then also bringing in Spider-Man, and where do these people stand on this accord. Those are the 4 key points in this. And all of the backstory has already been handled. Whereas this film is entirely backstory, and they want you to get as much of it for as many people as possible, which, in a 2-hour film with this many people is not possible.
They just needed to focus on a few main characters, and work from there. But that being said, they did spend time with all the protagonists, but there are so many of the antagonists that we know nothing about. Really, Psylocke.
Sod all about Psylocke, other than she just wanted power. And
and Jamie liked the onesie.
Shocker!
There. So predictable.
Yes.
But hey, that's all I knew about her. Yeah. She could rock that outfit. But other than that, we know shit all about anyone else other than Apocalypse, really. Through that really struggling opening scene, I thought that the movie just kicked off really confusing and slow. And
a little. I mean, obviously...
you obviously, like any intelligent moviegoer, knows that, okay, you'll be filled in later. But for that time, it's that scene drug on.
It did a little, and I would also question when this pyramid was built.
Yes.
Was it built specifically by people that knew they might want to collapse it at some point?
Well, it was built by aliens, Paul.
Yeah.
Aliens.
Aliens.
Post meme of crazy hair guy. Okay.
Yes. Just that slightly stoned, but those tunnels specifically were big enough for giant blocks of marble that were on direct lines to the main structural point for the pyramid, which would cause it to collapse. And the only reason why someone would design it that way was to do that, which is why it's very odd that Apocalypse would stage something inside it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little problematic there.
The point where you are the weakest of all, put yourself in a building that is capable of being collapsed at any time. Yeah,
well,
okay,
I guess it's there to, shit hits the fan, let's, destroy everything. But it's rather well planned out. Yeah,
very well,
to say the least. Yeah.
And also the smoothest stone you'll ever see.
Outside of the border and Indiana Jones.
Yeah, no stopping there. There is no friction in this world.
No, not at all. So some issues there. Was there anything else that really bugged you with this, or would you like to get to some of the bright moments?
I've been trying to think. The main problem I found with this is that it gave so much screen time to the little kids, and obviously what it's trying to do is set up these are the people we're going to be following, because as we now know, there's going to be no more Jennifer Lawrence, there's going to be no more Michael Fassbender. No Fassbender either. Probably no more James McAvoy as well, I think. And there's going to be no Wolverine, or at the very least, there's going to be no Hugh Jackman Wolverine.
Yeah.
In future versions of this, I know he's going to be in the next Wolverine film and maybe Deadpool, and that should be it. But I didn't feel like this, treading slightly on the idea of they were trying to give him backstory. I didn't feel like the characters were that well rounded or well written.
They were just average, and I think that's pretty can summarize the whole film. But pretty average characters.
Nothing against people playing them.
No,
because they played them well, but there wasn't much to play, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, you're correct. Yeah. I don't mean that like it sounded. Unfortunately for the film career.
Yes.
Couldn't agree more. Like I mentioned previously, some really good performances in this by Sophie Turner. Michael Fassbender is great. Reading a Chinese menu. So, he's great. I will say J Law, as some people call her. I think was kind of
she didn't have
a lot to do. Yeah, motivate the youngsters there at the one point. But
and touching on that just a smidgen, someone did get a hold of me and say, you should probably mention this, and I was thinking I wasn't going to, but I kind of want to just because I want to put my point of view across. So there was this supposedly sexist or just demeaning or something poster that went up showing Apocalypse holding Mystique by the neck.
Okay.
Right. And people have been criticizing this poster, saying that, it's demeaning to women, it's just empowering the people that'll go around I haven't looked too much into the actual criticism for it, but so many people are outraged by it, and I don't know why.
Because these are the things that hurt worthwhile causes, which of course sexism and advancement of women's rights. It's not to get too political here on the podcast, but is a strong, strong belief of mine. But unfortunately, some people will use any excuse to further their agenda, and that's not always the best for that agenda. I didn't hear about this at all. So
it's just something. I think
it's a moment in the film.
One billboard somewhere and they put it up and they were like, X-Men and Apocalypse. This is when it's coming out, and everyone was like, "Well, that's just horrible."
I mean,
you haven't
maybe
seen the film?
they shouldn't. It's not the best way to advertise the film. I could agree on that. There are many other little screen caps you could grab to this film that would be just as captivating, or whatever you want to call it, or intimidating, without having to use that. But yeah, I don't understand the outrage there. These are characters. This isn't a real man doing this to a real woman.
Yeah, I know.
So yes, then I'll be outraged. But yeah, I don't. First I'm hearing of it. So
yeah, well, I'm sort of struggling very quickly now to try and find the.
I did not stall long enough.
The picture for it. That's fine.
Well, I will say, while we're talking about major issues, and once again, I'm anticipating the counterpoint, but damn, this movie was long.
Yeah.
There it is.
That was it.
Uh-huh.
Having seen the film, do you have any problem with that poster?
No,
I mean,
I'll still say I don't think it's the best image to use, but I don't think
it's the bad guy having the good guy on the ropes.
Yeah.
And just because it happens to be Mystique rather than Cyclops, say, people are up in arms about it.
Okay, well, I think we should leave it before we get ourselves into trouble.
I echo your sentiment that those causes that are getting riled up, like good causes, maybe this specific incident isn't the right place for it. Carry on.
So moving on, yes. God damn it, this movie was bloody long. And part of that, sure, had to do with the fact that it didn't start till after 9:30 p.m. for me, and it was a school night essentially. I had to go work in the morning, right. And I didn't get out of there till 12:30 or no, it was midnight maybe. Something. It was after midnight when we got out of the theater.
Oh, really? Right, yeah. I'm assuming you stayed for the after credit sequence then.
I did not. No.
You did not? Okay.
No, we stayed till what we thought would be a mid-credit sequence.
Right.
Okay, I can find it on YouTube or whatever, or Paul will tell me.
Do you require me to tell you?
Yeah, just a second. But so like I was saying, I think Captain America: Civil War was longer than this. I think a lot of those Avengers movies would go, but damn it, this one just felt long.
Yeah.
224, and they would build up momentum, and then that was the other thing. I'm glad I remember this. The scenes were disjointed. They would build up, they'd earn this momentum, and then it'd just ebb off, and then pause, and then you'd have these 5-6 minute scenes that were just excruciatingly slow. And then we get back into it again. And
I'm assuming when you're saying the scenes that were excruciatingly slow, I imagine most of those had Apocalypse in them.
Had Apocalypse in them, or sadly, Fassbender. I enjoyed watching his performance, but a lot of, I've already touched on that backstory I thought drug on forever. But they could have shaved 20 to 30 minutes off of this film, I think, and it would have been fine. I don't know why it has to be it's kind of this unwritten rule now that superhero movies need to be 2 hours plus or something,
I think the main problem is that they want to have, several action beats in the film, and definitely several good story beats in the film, and they feel like for every action beat you have to have something that builds up to it rather than just giving you the action outright, and that just all adds up. But yes, I do agree that I think, and this is going to sound weird, just out of nowhere, but I think that the original Spider-Man trilogy kind of had it down pat, the amount of time you have with the characters. I don't think any of them came to 2 hours. They were just under.
Maybe that's the only thing Spider-Man 3 got right. Because it did not get anything else right.
Yeah, I bet you if I look it up, that was the one that also pushed over into 2 hours.
Probably.
But yeah, it's this problem now where studios need to give you so much because all the other studios are giving you that much. And it just needs to be written well, and sometimes it isn't. And unfortunately, I think that some of the writing kind of fell down on this one.
I believe, yes, and Spider-Man 3, 2 hours 19.
There we go.
Boy, was that a long 2 hours 19. Okay, but yes, we're not here to crap on that one at this time.
Yeah, maybe if that ends up on Netflix soon, we can cover that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of running out of my comments here on this film.
I know, I'm running.
We're coming in tight on this one. I think.
Now, well, one thing that we didn't do this time, we did for Civil War, was we didn't record what we thought before we saw the film. So, before we get into the ratings, I think it would be nice to say what our mindset was before we went in.
So, this is very meta for the film here, going into the past. For the present here.
Exactly.
Yes. What would past Brian? I don't know. I was eagerly anticipating this one because I've enjoyed the last two so much.
Yeah.
First Class, when I get into ratings, I'll go into my rankings a little bit. But First Class and Days of Future Past were just splendid. So... I was looking for more of the same. I was ready to see the new bunch. I love Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones, so I was excited to see her in a new, powerful feminine character.
Yeah, for those people that aren't familiar, she is Sansa Stark in Game of Thrones, and I believe she's a fan favorite at this point. So,
she's getting she's turning the pussy little girl's turning pretty badass right now. So,
and that actually answers my next question, which is, I'm assuming she's one of the ones that hasn't been nude in the show yet.
Sorry, Game of Thrones spoilers. You were not aware of, but yes, sorry. Yeah, people get really upset about those. I find out. Yes. If you start talking and they're not up to date. But hey, sorry, it's not my fault you're not up to date.
As far as I'm aware, we haven't said anything that.
Aside
from the fact that
if you're saying
talking
she's
about
still around, then there's kind of you can stem from there. But, Okay. Oh well, I'm just trying to be overly conscious of that.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, so where the hell was I going?
You were a fan of.
Yeah, I was a fan of the new bunch. Ty Sheridan, who we talked about briefly before we started recording. The kid from Mud is grown up now, apparently. Even though he's still, I guess, a little younger. But I think he's great. He's a terrific actor.
So all these names attached to it.
Yeah.
You were excited.
So I was excited to see this new group and kind of pass this on. And as you can probably tell by the tone, it all fell a little flat for me. I said, there were good bits, but. It just did not. There were pieces to the puzzle that did not come together, which is an obvious analogy for me to look at right now. There's a puzzle on my table.
I was going to say
never getting done unless Paul helps me continually.
I think. Okay, let's promise the listeners right now we will finish this puzzle that they have no idea what it is, and we will put it out once it is done.
And I would put it at about 20% complete, maybe, and that's generous. And it's been sitting here for months. But yes.
Right.
So yes, that was it. So I don't know. Over to you. What were you kind of anticipating or looking forward to, and did it live up to that?
So I saw 2 different trailers for this film, and it was actually something that I was enjoying because they didn't seem to be giving away much in the film. It's something trailers don't do a lot of now.
Yeah,
so I was happy to see that. And so I was going in thinking, okay, Apocalypse, you got to see him in the manor, and so it was like, so he's going to be, okay, so he is going to be one of these villains that can be larger than life and can also be dismal. And so that was interesting to me. I was looking forward to seeing how they were going to do that. Maybe there would be a scene where the military would come after him and he would just do almost Hulk-like, just one big swipe with his arm and knock some of the things off. And then also he had the horsemen, and I don't think you saw all of them, at least in the trailer I saw, but you did see Xavier using Cerebro and getting the black eyes, and so you saw maybe he'll end up being with them. You don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of promise, I think, when I was going into it. I didn't know much about who was going to be in it, but I was looking forward to seeing how they were going to be portraying these kids, especially since I knew that this was a different universe than we knew, because obviously the timeline's been reset.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think much like yourself, I came out of this thinking, well, yeah, it was alright.
It was alright.
But nowhere near what I'd known from the previous film. Mm-hmm. It just couldn't hold muster with that. I don't know.
And I'm not sure if it's a fair critique or not, but it's either way, there it is. Because it's an entirely different film than Days of Future Past, which, I mean, I love that movie, but...
I'd say that is actually kind of nice to hear, because obviously there's different timelines shown in that, and you don't like time travel films.
No, I mean, it can get a bit confusing, but you stick with it and it's fine. That aspect of it, but yes, there are exceptions to that rule.
Yes.
So quite a few actually, which but I just don't, all right, sorry. You got me into it, but yes, I just don't like it as the main plot element, like the Deus Ex Machina of, we fixed it, time travel, or there are no consequences because we can fix everything. All that. Yeah. So, moving on. Shall we get to ratings?
Well, there's just a couple of other little things I just wanted to mention.
Sure, of course, yes.
Like Cody Smith McPhee, which is a brilliant last name, as Kurt Wagner or Nightcrawler. Yeah. He was really good.
He was. I mean, he's no Alan Cumming, but that's he was. I could buy him as a younger version of that Nightcrawler, because obviously he's very wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, but obviously the Nightcrawler that we saw in X2 was very beaten down by the world, whereas this guy is like slightly more hopeful. Yeah,
but and this kid is Australian, and he kind of like Hugh Jackman, actually. He's just very good at putting on that accent. Like I almost thought he was a German guy that they got to do the role. He was very, very good with the German accent there.
Yeah, and I told Paul, but if you want to see more of him and Fassbender, check out Slow West. And the title is pretty accurate. It is a slow-moving Western film, but the performances in it are just top-notch. So check that one out if you haven't. But, he's great in it, too.
Definitely need to look at that one. And then also, a really good cameo by Stan Lee and his wife.
They've been hitting the cameos out of the park lately on the Marvel films.
Yeah, for those who don't know somehow that are still listening to this, there's a point where all of the world's nuclear missiles are being launched into space. And, of course, when they're being launched, no one actually knows what's going on. And then later you see them in space, and you see people reacting, and then it's just Stan Lee and his real-life wife standing on the porch, holding each other, watching the missiles go up. And yeah, it was actually it
wasn't the
really
best
nice
one, but yeah, it was
really
good.
Nice.
They've had very creative ways to get him in there.
Yeah. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm not looking forward to the day where you realise by the end of the film that there hasn't been a cameo and there isn't going to be.
Let's not talk about that yet.
I mean, I like to think that
it'll be hologram Stanley.
Yeah,
it'll be digital.
It'll either be that, or he's going to record so many different things.
You're just going to put him in a recording booth for like a week and just
give him
crazy absurd things.
Give him the entire costume department from Fox and just let him run wild in front of a green screen.
Oh, what I wouldn't pay to have that on a bonus feature or something. Yeah. Well, right. Are we ready for ratings now?
Yeah, I think we have beaten around the bush long enough here.
Please, yeah.
I do think that not before we actually say our ratings, I do think that the trouble we're having really discussing this film might show what we think of it. So,
it's a tough one to kind of wrap your head around.
Why don't you go first?
Sure, I'll lead off. As you can probably tell, like I said, I started off saying lots of hits, but I'll amend that, but more misses than hits. And I know you said where you would kind of put it, but for me, I would say it's on par with like the first X-Men film. Okay. I would rank Days of Future Past and First Class, and I'm really not including the Wolverine or like the main X-Men films.
Okay,
but because Wolverine is really great. Origins is okay, but yeah, we're getting off the tangent anyway. But so I'd put it better than 2 and 3, which may not be saying all too much. But yeah, I'd put it just above those two and kind of equal to 1. Like I said, it was just, I don't know, it was, I can't even find the words to describe it. I guess it was just a victim of, I don't know. Like I said, if it could have been avoided here, if this movie could have been better, I don't know, because of all of the setting up elements to it.
Right.
But that was so much of the film, like I already said. And it just was too much. The length and all that. There wasn't enough good bits to keep me going through it, and I was ready for the movie to be over before it was over, which is always sad. Like you want to, when they get the credits, you want to be, damn, like, it's over. That's obviously what you want. You want more. Yeah. I wanted less. Wanted far, far less.
All right.
But great performances by the youngsters in this. And this is another thing here. I think I might be done with X-Men films. Like, I will continue to see them.
Okay.
Because they come out. But I don't think I'm going to have the enthusiasm or drive or, interest in them that I do in the Marvel, the other, MCU, the Avengers characters.
Yeah.
I just, it's kind of, I've seen enough. And I know what Bryan Singer can do. And you are correct, like, he's probably the best person to direct these. But I get it. I'm good.
Yeah.
So with all of that, I'm coming in at about a -5 on this.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, a little harsh, but
I can get it. I see that.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know, this is your first episode.
Yep.
Welcome.
Real quick,
our rating system is you start out at 0. The idea being like 0 fault, perfect film. There's nothing we can find wrong with it. And then we take away points at our own discretion for any niggles we have, starting out minus 0.1, 0.2.
And then larger chunks. Yeah,
and then, once you get past 0.5, you're taking out half.
Errors. So, yeah. So, -5 out of -10, yeah. It's average.
Okay.
It's alright, they're good bits.
Yeah, I can see that.
Parts that annoy the hell out of me. And for you?
Alright, well, I'll say just before I do mine, I did receive one review from a friend of mine who is a big comic fan, so I'll just read it out and see if it answers anything that you have there. So he says, I'm a huge comic fan and have felt awfully spoiled for all the great comic movies we've been given in the past 10 years. The new X-Men franchise is no exemption. The prior 2 films are rather well done and tackle issues that genuinely cause you to care for the characters and the story. Yep. With X-Men Apocalypse, I feel the disappointment, I guess, rather with what was given. They play with so many good story elements and really tried to build off the prior films, but ultimately tried to fit in one too many elements. They tried to carry the ongoing story of the old guard, reveal the new villain, and set up the new cast. This is in no way as bad as Batman v Superman. In fact, there is a lot to praise.
No, yeah, it's much better than that.
Yeah, he gives credit to the creative team for trying to do a lot of the histories, even if they didn't do it. He feels the movie as a true example of a film made by comic fans and not for the general audience. He came away overly positive because he already knows and understands the histories. So I think he liked to see that they were trying. This is not a franchise killer, it's not a great one, but rather just meh. So I think he kind of echoes it. He ends up giving it a -4 himself.
Oh, using our system.
And he actually did explain the end credits sequence, which, again, I don't know. Did you end up finding out what it was?
No, yes.
Okay, so basically you see the mop-up that's happening at the Weapon X facility.
Oh.
So all of these people are mopping the floors, sucking up all the bullets, getting rid of all the bodies, people in suits doing all that, and then this one guy in a suit comes in, opens up this thing which is in the room Weapon X was in, takes out a little blood vial, puts it next to a bunch of other little vials, and closes the briefcase, and it's got Essex Corporation on it. And so he says, Essex is for Nathaniel Essex, so the next villain is Mr. Sinister. He's a freaky guy who likes collecting mutant genes. And then he also says at the end, also, what the fuck, Wolverine? That felt so forced in, and for me, generally not welcomed. So,
really?
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite bits.
Yeah, I understand both sides. I mean, maybe he just wasn't too fond of the get-up he had on. I don't know.
Yeah, little headgear.
Yeah. Which I kind of enjoyed that it was very different, because this is a different Weapon X than we saw before, because it kind of was pushed forward due to events that have now occurred. So I kind of like that. All right. But yes, my rating. Well,
exactly. A lot of pauses.
I know. I kind of echo your sentiments in that it is kind of an average film. I think it was better than X-Men 3, or The Last Stand. I will still state that I didn't mind watching that film. It just, I think the ending of that film is just
atrocious.
Is the problem.
That third act in that film is,
Yeah. And Vinnie Jones, nice to see you, but
nice to see you, but not nice to see you.
So I think it's definitely better than that, and I think it's better than Wolverine Origins.
Yes.
And I would say this is
maybe. I don't know.
I wasn't a big fan of Origins, to be honest.
I'd put it maybe. But I'm sorry, this is your
that's fine. And definitely not as good as the previous X-Men in this alternate timeline, as it were. My problem with this is I feel so sort of indifferent towards it, because I felt as if I watched it because it's going to be a bridge to the next one rather than anything else. Kind of like how I originally was thinking of the Captain America film after seeing the very first one. And yet, obviously now, Captain America is really solid in its own right, but I think this just kind of fell flat a lot of times. Like, we've mentioned a couple of the nice things, like they had the Quicksilver scene, which may have gone on a bit too long, and we had some really good performances in roles that weren't necessarily written the best. So
I thought the big fight looked good.
Yeah,
like at the end, like it looked amazing. Like,
they had some great set pieces and stuff like that. There's good things about it, but there's always a bad thing or a not as good thing to kind of knock it down. So I think I'm going to have to echo you, actually, and go with a -5 on this. It's just very middle of the road, and especially given what we've had in previous years, it's just not up to par, I think, which is a shame, because I do like X-Men. I do wish that Fox could just give X-Men back to Marvel and we could just have this huge world, which is what it is if you follow the comics. But yeah, I mean, it just an unfortunate misstep, and I really hope that the next one does well, especially since it's losing most of the key players that people have gone to see it for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I don't know if they did enough work here to earn, that new generation here, of film fans or of the characters playing those new roles, the new role, not new roles, but new characters playing those roles.
But assuming we're still going when the next one comes out, I think that one might have to be the decider.
Yeah, so I know forgive me, I don't remember who had those lovely sentiments, but I agreed with most of that.
I was like, that was my friend Pat, who says maybe we should refer to him as just comic book nerd.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, he was saying not a franchise killer, and I very nearly could be for me. Like I said, I'm like, ugh, it just depends what the next one looks like. Look at the trailers, and even though I hate myself for looking at the trailers, but from too much. But yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. Yep, disappointed, but still better than BVS. I like it.
Yes.
So, anything to add here before we sign off?
No, I think I'm done, unfortunately.
Get a hold of us on Twitter at Blockbusters. Let us know how wrong we got it, or how right.
Well, in for penny, in for pound, actually. I watched Victor Frankenstein last night, and that was good. That was better than this film, actually.
Well, all right, there you go. See
that's
Victor
my recommendation.
Don't see X-Men Apocalypse.
Yes.
I mean, but still see it, but, temper your expectations.
Yes.
All right. That's been all for me. I'm Ben Bryan.
And I've been Paul.
We'll see you.
All right.